on this headline, the country's bus and coach industry simply can't cope with COVID-19 protocols and limited operating capacity. The Southern African Bus Operators Association says that several coach lines have had to reduce staff in order to survive. The organization says its pleas for government assistance have fallen on deaf ears. We speak now to Basil Govender, Executive Manager of the Southern Africa Bus Operations Association. Thank you very much, Basil, for joining us. Perhaps let's start with the mandate of the Southern African Bus Operators Association and who you represent.
Afternoon, Dudu. Yes, thanks for the opportunity. SABAWA, as it's called and referenced in the industry, represents the industry at large and is the industry comprises of a cross-section of subsectors, not the least of which is primarily operating on behalf of government on a contracted or subsidized basis. Then we've got the scholar and learner transport segment, which is broadly encompassed with SMME operators and contracted operators to the Department of Education. Then the intercity, long distance or tourism transport services, as they are called, which also encompasses cross-border operations. So as you can see, broadly speaking, the entire bus industry, SABAWA represents at least around 73% of registered operators in that industry.
And much has been said about how the taxi industry contributes a lot to the economy of South Africa and the airline industry. But when we look at the bus industry, what would you say the contribution is?
To do significant. If you're talking in excess of 20,000 buses in operation on a daily, monthly, weekly basis, I did speak of operations. The public transport operating grant in itself is in excess of billions of rands on an annual basis. So the contribution from an economic point of view and employment point of view, significantly employing at least in excess of 24,000 across the industry in varied forms, directly and indirectly. So a huge contribution to the economy of South Africa, and currently taking a huge and severe knock in terms of operations and loss of income.
Taking a severe knock, and we understand loading capacity for buses sits at 50%. Now with the taxi industry saying that we are suffering and we're going to take it upon ourselves to fix the situation, we'll be loading at 100% capacity. The airlines industry is loading at 100% capacity. Will you be calling for the same?
I think we must be cognizant here. Lives matter. So it's safety first in terms of any protocols and decisions taken. The industry must be commended because since the implementation of lockdown and restrictions, they've proactively put measures in place at huge cost. Just to give you a context of costs, on a monthly basis, it's in excess of 97 million rand if the entire operation or industry had to operate. But just for the contracted public transport sector, we're talking about 34 million rand of compliance costs. That is to ensure buses are disinfected. There are social distancing measures in the bus, clearly demarcating which seats are not to be occupied. So those measures will remain. But I think what we're looking to have from the Minister and the Department of Transport is a clear commitment to engage a little bit more earnestly. We've had meetings with the Minister. We're expecting a follow-up meeting, and we look forward to that follow-up meeting. We're engaging with social partners via NEDLAC, but it has to be stressed. Even in the context of the announced relief measures via TERS and UIF, this has not translated into meaningful relief for the industry. Job losses are happening as we speak. More jobs will be shed. Downstream industries reliant on the bus industry are already feeling the impact. In terms of the restrictions, we will ensure compliance, and we will continue to talk to government about easing some of the restrictions, but it does not look good for the industry, I must add, Dudu, because there's proposals for advanced level 3 restrictions for public transport, which means the public transport peak is going to be spread on a bigger window in the AM and PM, and to stagger working hours for business, which means fewer people on buses over longer periods of time, which means increased costs for operators and without relief and or compensation, it is not going to be viable to continue. And at this point, many companies have closed and put up for sale signs and are returning assets to bank. And we look to the minister and his team to urgently come to the table to talk to SABOA and the industry about relief measures and constructive implementation going forward.
And we'll hear from you in terms of how those engagements go. Thank you very much, Basil Govender, Executive Manager of the Southern Africa Bus Operation.